Are you looking for a way to advertise your business, offer discounts to your customers, and help veterans at the same time? Then citybyhero.com is the answer. It's your shop local program helping you while providing jobs and funds for veterans. It's simple to sign up, easy for your clients to find your business and your offers, and there are many plans to choose from that fit your budget and your needs. Go to citybyhero.com and sign up today, and we'll make a donation for you to a veterans organization. citybyhero.com.
And now, it's time to Stand for Truth with the host of Stand for Truth Radio, Susan Knowles.
And welcome to the program, everyone. I'm your host, Susan Knowles. Please check out my website at wnd-com and the articles that I write as a contributor to The Blaze and wnd-com. And don't forget, you need to follow us at Stand for Truth Radio in a segment I also do called Knowles on the News. All you have to do is just download the Spreaker app on your phone or just go to Spreaker.com and follow us there. We're also on iTunes, and can also be found on YouTube at just under Susan Knowles and at susanknowles.com on Twitter. I'm so glad that you could be here with us today. We have a really timely show for you. We're going to talk about newly released information on Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, and her health, and all the aspects that have been swirling around in the news lately. We're going to be talking today to Dr. Jerome Corsi. He will be discussing his latest book, Partners in Crime, The Clinton Scheme to Monetize the White House for Personal Profit. Now, in Partners in Crime, a two-time #1 New York Times bestselling author, Jerome Corsi, presents a detailed research and expert testimony proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Clinton Foundation is a vast criminal conspiracy, also described in these pages as a slush fund for grifters or con artists. Now serving as a senior staff reporter for online news giant WND, Corsi has given thousands of radio interviews and has been a repeat television guest on Fox News, Fox Business, MSNBC, and C-SPAN. He's been on our show before, and I want to welcome him back today. Welcome, Jerome Corsi. Jerry, how are you?
Good, Susan. Good to be back with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're back. You know, I looked over your book and I read most of it, but I didn't get it all done. Partners in Crime, the Clinton Scheme to Monetize the White House for Personal Profit. I think it's really well written, and as I said, it certainly is very timely.
Well, the key element, I think, in my book, Partners in Crime, is the detail of I go into examining the financials, the financial reports that were filed by the Clintons and the regulatory filings, and show that those are fraudulent. That basically the Clintons have not stated correctly amounts of money they've received or dispersed. They've hidden money. They've reorganized corporate structures. I mean, the financial records of the Clinton Foundation since inception are an obvious criminal fraud. It's a enormous scheme, which is, in other words, I think the charge that's easiest to prove is that the Clintons used the foundation to enrich themselves, and that's the crime of enormement, and that's defined under state and federal laws as a major criminal offense. Probably the major no-no in running a tax-favored foundation is to use that foundation to get rich and defrauding people who thought they were contributing to a legitimate charity. And the core of the book argues that Al Capone did not go to prison for racketeering. He went to prison for tax evasion. And the Clintons, the way to prove that the Clinton Foundation has been a criminal fraud is to detailedly pick apart the financial audits, the audited financial statements since inception, and the regulatory filings. And doing that, it's completely clear that this is a mess that is only designed to allow the Clintons to divert money, which they've done, out of the foundation. And I've proved and shown examples in the book of how that was done. Annulment is a much easier crime to prove than pay to play, which requires a nexus between the amount contributed to the foundation and the policy decision, which we're only going to get once we get more emails released from the Clintons.
Well, let's start back. I want to start back before even the Clinton Foundation was formed. Now, when they were leaving the White House, let's start back there. They were talking about how poor they were. They had no money. They weren't worth anything. What's really the truth? Starting right there.
Well, and I document this in the book. I point out in Partners in Crime that what to Paula Jones in the rape case that Bill Clinton settled, he had to pay $850,000 to Paula Jones, and lost his ability to practice law in Arkansas because of the lying he did under oath in the Paula Jones case. And then they had all the money they owed to lawyers to defend Bill Clinton on the sexual crimes that were, deferred by the White House by Hillary attacking the victims. So they had a huge amount of legal bills when they left the White House. And leaving the White House, I point out the Clintons even stole the furniture. They stole the silverware. They had to return some, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of government property that they lifted when they left the White House in classic grifter fashion. These were con artist grifters, stealing the national treasures out of the White House when they left. And suddenly, with a foundation that was created to build a library in Little Rock for Bill Clinton, it's the only reason the IRS gave a tax-deferred determination letter to the foundation for many years. The Clintons end up each with a net worth of $100 million or more, and neither one, except for Secretary Clinton, being in the Senate and holding a job as Secretary of State, which don't pay $100 million, and speaking fees, which even though they were exorbitant, don't add up to $100 million. The Clintons managed to accumulate this without any other job than the Clinton Foundation. So it's clear that money was diverted from the Clinton Foundation to pay for the Clintons' lifestyle and to end up in their bank accounts without bypassing, in schemes designed to bypass the IRS and schemes designed to make this not easily detectable from the financial records of the foundation.
Well, you were talking about them taking all the furniture and things like that. Now, I know you talk about it in your book, there was a House Government Reform Committee in 2002 that looked into what the Clintons did. And what came of that?
Well, I'd have to look at the exact page and get the details, but as I remember, what happened was the committee found a whole series of items that had been removed from the White House by the Clintons that were owned by, the U.S. government, many cases owned by the U.S. government archives or the Smithsonian or some other branch of the government, treasures that did not belong to the Clintons. And they walked off with these goods and were given by Congress a list of what had to be returned. And the Clintons actually came back in with that list. If you've got the page in front of you, I detail which property they had to return, but they included, sofas and furniture and silverware and paintings and just about everything else you can think of. The Clintons walked out with, saying those items belonged to them when they did not.
Well, and then again, I guess my point on that whole thing was nothing happened to them. It's kind of like any time the Clintons seem to do anything, really nothing happens to them that would happen to somebody else if they were doing it. And here's another example. They were just allowed to bring everything back, and then everything's okay after that. We just forget about it, sweep it under the rug, and I don't think very many people even heard about it. So the American public didn't know that that's what happened, and it's just forgotten. Kind of typical Clinton-esque.
Well, the Clintons get a constant pass. This is one of the other points I make in Partners in Crime, that the mainstream media and the media in general treat the Clintons as if they were privileged royalty. And we've got a partisan press that defends the Clintons And, crimes that the Clintons commit that a normal person would go to jail for, if a Republican, be front page in the New York Times every day for a month, had George W. Bush taken anything from the White House that belonged to the people of the U.S. government, people and the government, that would be major news. When the Clintons do it, it's nothing. It's ignored. It doesn't even show up. I mean, these are the kinds of problems that the Clintons are allowed to skate on, and then they say, well, Hillary's been investigated and nobody pressed any charges. Well, the charges should have been pressed. They should have been accused of theft at that point. I mean, you can't walk out of the White House with government property, and just because you're the former president and first lady doesn't put you above the law. And you say, oh, I forgot that silverware didn't belong to me. I mean,
yeah. I know. And it seems like the public, or not the public, but whoever's in charge of prosecuting them or whatever, they seem to buy it and they move on. One of the other things that you mentioned in your book, Partners in Crime, you talk about, the Clinton Foundation. But I want you to tell people, the name of the foundation in the beginning, kind of what other foundation they have, and then there's like 3 foundations. And I want to know kind of how they're intertwined with each other. Could you talk about that?
Well, the original foundation was the William J. Clinton Foundation. It was created for the Presidential Library. Okay, and it evolved, it morphed into the Clinton Foundation, just the Clinton Foundation as a name, and then it morphed now into the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. They've set up various subgroups which are kind of questionable as to what their legal status is or how they're constituted. I mean, we had the Clinton Health Initiative, which was the CHAI, Clinton Health AIDS Initiative, which was, formally, first of all, it was just declared as a special purpose. Clinton was decided that they were going to go after AIDS in Africa. And then they said, well, we'll have the Clinton Health AIDS Initiative. Well, was that a subgroup or a program under the Clinton Foundation, or was it a separate corporation? The Clinton Foundation never went to the IRS and got a determination letter, which you have to get under law in order to declare a new purpose of charitable giving is going to get tax-favored status. Clintons, did not go and file this as a separate corporation, and so suddenly the financials are all consolidated, and you can't tell where the money is coming in for the Health AIDS Initiative and where it is coming in for other purposes, including the ongoing building of the library. And these confusions permit the Clintons to do a form of accounting that becomes so convoluted that you can't undo it. You can't get behind it. In other words, they have one number for salaries. Well, okay, where did that money come from? Was it used in the Clinton Foundation salaries or in the Clinton Health AIDS Initiative, the CHI Foundation part? And the Clintons then set up the Clinton Global Initiative. Well, again, this is not filed under the charitable laws. It's not. There's no IRS determination letter given. They just simply declare make up a name. The Clinton Global Initiative now exists, and it's holding an annual meeting. And since it's doing all this good, the mainstream media says, well, why would we bother to ask questions like, was it ever incorporated? Did it ever get IRS approval to raise money for these purposes? What's the accounting of the money that's raised? Where does it go? Instead, you get these audited financial reports that have lump sum amounts that are just plopped into the financials, salaries, or receipts. And you don't know where they came from or what they're used for or how they're dispersed. The detail in the Clinton financials is non-existent. And the numbers don't reconcile with any of the press releases of how much was pledged or contributed to the Clinton Foundation. This is the kind of a shoddy accounting that you would expect from a third-rate grifter con artist,
Yeah.
and would be immediately red flagged by the IRS or the state attorneys general if anybody was paying any attention. But since it's the Clintons, they don't get scrutinized.
Well, and there's even a Clinton Family Foundation to go along with the Clinton Foundation, right? I mean, did they just make that one up too?
Well, they just make that one up too. I mean, that's the problem is all these various Clinton entities, and when I worked with Charles Ortel, who is really a brilliant analyst, and report on Charles Ortel's work. He was a major New York analyst who helped to bring down, General Motors, and some of the financial accounting ledger domain they did prior to the 2008-2009 crash. And you look at the financials and you say, basically that there's no way to sort them out to know where things are going or how things are constituted. The Clinton Foundation and its sub-entities are not equally filed in all the states. We went and got different state registrations. Some years, the Clinton Health Initiative filed its own 440 forms, which are the forms you file with the IRS. In other years, the Clinton Health the Clinton Health AIDS Initiative, was simply consolidated under the main Clinton Foundation, and no separate 440 was filed. When you get these inconsistent 440s, very confusing. You never know why they're doing what they're doing. And then the Clintons restate their financials, where you can't just restate your financials as if, we made a few mistakes, so now we're going to do a corrected one. Well, you don't get a redo on an audited financial statement.
Well, unless you're the Clintons, right? I mean, I think they would get a redo, really. I think they'll just, as many times as they want to come back and just go in there and say, well, we need to refile these. I mean, they let them refile. How many times now have they refiled? Repeatedly.
In fact, it was a refiling just going on as we entered the presidential contest. I mean, this all has been a constantly, you get various people. Chelsea comes in and she brings in a guy named Eric Braverman to help run the Clinton Foundation and straighten it up. Well, Braverman comes in. He's from the big accounting firm that McKinsey company that Hillary, and Bill managed to get Chelsea a $600,000 or $800,000 a year job for. And Braverman comes in for a few weeks. Braverman's trying to get it straightened up. They present Braverman the financial audits to sign, and Braverman says, "I'm not signing these." He resigns.
Oh, smart man. Yeah. Wow.
He resigns because he must have realized that, the financials he was being given to sign, that the Clintons managed to get done by some very big accounting firms, including PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Wow.
That if you sign these financial statements on behalf of the Clinton Foundation, when I show them partners in crime, that you'll be taking on criminal liabilities yourself to become part of the scam. If anybody dares investigate it, and my book points out that any one state, under state law, can close down the entire Clinton Foundation, and that is the end of the Clinton Foundation nationally while that investigation is going on.
Yeah, the investigation that the DOJ doesn't want to do and has said we're not going to investigate them. And I guess, somebody else supposedly is starting to really look at it, but who knows? I know that the ACLJ with Jay Sekulow, they're going to be filing paperwork in order to get this information turned over to find out what's really going on and what they can do and put it into litigation. But, with the Clintons, again, they're so Teflon proof, you wonder what's going to come out of it.
Well, every investigation of the Clintons ever done ends up the way the Whitewater investigation did, and that is with, indictments being written in the Department of Justice only to have it called off at top levels.
Yeah.
And then you've got, the email scandal, and Bill Clinton meets on the tarmac just before the FBI announces. He meets with Loretta Lynch in a little 20-minute powwow. That's completely out of bounds, influencing, ultimately, got to be suspected to influence Loretta Lynch's decision as to whether to go ahead with prosecution or not.
Right.
And the whole thing is that the Clintons they act like whatever they do has got to be excused because they're the Clintons.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't follow the rules. I mean, if you're going to do a foundation, create a foundation, the rules are very strict on both the state and federal level. You can't use this money for your personal gain because you've got tax exemptions and you're enlisting people to give you money supposedly to do some charitable good. There's a disaster. Well, the Clintons look at an earthquake in India or an earthquake in Haiti, and they see an opportunity to advance their get-rich scheme. And that's clearly in violation of all the laws against using the money in the foundation for enrichment. In my book, I go through chapter and verse and document this, and I document it from public sources like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, which have reported extensively on how the Clintons have violated the rules of operating a foundation. But even despite this public reporting, the general narrative in the mainstream media is that the Clinton Foundation still does a lot of good charitable work. Well, I question that in Partners in Crime because I look at the various areas in which they were supposed to have done good charitable work, and I don't see that they've made any impact whatsoever. In some cases, like Haiti or India, they've actually made the situation worse by their involvement, scamming money that should have gone to legitimate relief efforts, and in fact ends up in the Clinton Foundation coffers and disappears.
Yeah, and people are looking at this as like, well, is the foundation legitimate? I'm looking at it as, where's the fraud that we should be looking for and finding? Because, while it may be something that they do with the IRS and it may change their status as a foundation or nonprofit organization, I think it's much, much deeper than that. And looking at recently in what they've in their IRS tax return saying that they gave $1 million to charity from the Clinton Foundation, and then we find out that money went to the Clinton Family Foundation. So it's amazing that nobody's calling them on it, or that the public isn't outraged, or something else is happening.
Well, in fact, I point out that in page 131, I point out that the Clinton Health Access Initiative, the CHI, Clinton Health Access Initiative, which is registered as an Arkansas nonprofit, and it lists its business principal address of business in Massachusetts. Now, Massachusetts on March 31, 2008, revoked the registration for what was then called the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative,
right,
which became CHI, effectively shutting it down. Now, it still continued to raise money nationally, and including from people in Massachusetts, I'm sure. But, again, people don't realize that the initiative, the documentation is available to show that the Massachusetts shut down in 2008 the Clinton Foundation because of the irregularities in its whole financial structure and the suspicion that it was not acting as a legitimate charity.
Wow. Well, and I even found back in 2014, and again, so little was heard of this, that the Clintons gave $3 million to the Clinton Family Foundation, $1.87 million passed to the Clinton Foundation, and then also $250,000 went to the Diplomacy Center Foundation, of which Hillary is on the board of directors of that foundation. That was, I think, reported in the Daily Caller that has come out. I mean, stuff like that nobody's hearing anything about it except through people like you and your book Partners in Crime. That information is starting to just now really come to the forefront.
Well, and also, take a look at the related corporations set up by the Clintons, and this Teneo, for instance, which was a consulting firm set up by Doug Band, who started his career as a body man to Bill Clinton in the White House. Okay, now Teneo gets set up as a separate corporation to advise companies And the scam that gets played is that the Clinton Foundation essentially is seeking donations from companies recommended to the Teneo group to be clients paying fees, and Bill Clinton is, receiving fees from Teneo on the clients that are supposedly being advised by Teneo, also contributing to the Clinton Global Initiative or the Clinton Foundation. So they're really playing a double hit. They're looking to get someone who wants a favor done, someone who wants to get close to the Clintons. Said, okay, here's $1 million. Well, you've also got to become a client of Teneo. And they pay Teneo $10 million, and Clintons get fees on that as well.
It's amazing. I was reading something else about Doug Band from, again, I believe it was Daily Caller that brought this out. Recently, there was a $42,000 contribution made to the Desert Classic charities, and then Doug Band was on the board there until 2014, and that came from the Clinton Foundation, supposedly. And then that money was returned, I think, as Hillary started to become closer to either running for president or Secretary of State. I can't remember which one. But then the Desert Classic charity supposedly gave $700,000 to the Clinton Foundation, according to the 2015 tax filings, for some type of obesity program. And again, was the Clinton Foundation associated with an obesity program, or vice versa?
Or a Clinton Global Initiative associated with an obesity program. And, again, that was not registered as a purpose with the IRS, which has just basically said anything the Clintons decide to, that this charity is a charity with us, and they're okay to do tax-favored donations to. Well, no other charity in the world can do that without a specific IRS determination letter that approves that purpose as tax-favored for raising money. And this Teneo thing, the interconnections between these corporations and how they work, here you've got, Huma Abedin, who is top assistant to Hillary in the State Department. She was being paid $335,000 a year as a consultant to Teneo, while she received $135,000 a year in government pay as a part-time consultant for Hillary in the State Department. Now, that kind of double dipping, and Huma Abedin is the Hillary Clinton aide since the 1990s, who was married to this former, disgraced Congressman Anthony Weiner, who left the House of Representatives with his extramarital sex texting. She ends up being a connections to the Muslim Brotherhood through her parents, who have worked for this Institute for Muslim Minority Affairs, which was founded by her late father and currently directed by her mother, and it's backed by the Muslim World League, an Islamic organization in the Mecca in Saudi Arabia that was founded by the Muslim Brotherhood leaders in the Middle East. And she's receiving double-dipping salary from Teneo, Doug Band, affiliated with the Clinton Foundation, while she's also in the pay of the State Department.
Yeah, and no one mentions conflict of interest here, and what it could mean and the connections, and no one is really investigating that. When you're double dipping and you're all connected up there's got to be a conflict of interest, and yet because she's under the Clinton wing, she's not being investigated either, and seemingly, or at least we're not being told that she is. I want to go on to in your book, Partners in Crime, you talk about the connection of the Clinton Foundation and with the State Department. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, this again is another way that it shows up all over the place. I talk, for instance, about this Frank Justra, who is a Canadian entrepreneur who first was in the film business, and then he went into the mining business. Well, Justra, who started cultivating a relationship in the 90s with Bill Clinton, when Bill Clinton was even president, and then began to develop it after Bill Clinton left the White House, getting him on his private airplane, flying him around. Well, Justra then goes into mining, and he decides that he wants to gain in Kazakhstan the resources for uranium. Well, and he forms this a uranium company that essentially has ties ultimately to Russia. And Bill Clinton flies off with this Frank Justra to Kazakhstan, and they get what the reported as a monstrous deal, where Justra ends up with an exclusive rights to buy at a bargain price 3 uranium projects controlled by Kazakhstan's state-owned uranium agency. And so these are going to make him tens of millions of dollars in profits. And, of course, Bill Clinton is right there, and Hillary Clinton is using her influence at the State Department to make sure all the roadblocks are removed from this Kazakhstan contract. Well, it goes on, and Justra reorganizes this company and ultimately ends up with a tie, this kind of reverse merger, where a company owned by Russia's state-owned energy group controls Justra's energy company, and now they want to get the rights to like half of all uranium produced in the United States. And the Clintons engineer this to occur. This is an issue that also Peter Schweitzer covers, and take it through what's called CIFIS, which is this Committee on Foreign Investment that is an interagency committee with the Treasury, U.S. the Secretary of State is on the CIFIS committee, and they basically, in 2013, approve Frank Justra's allocation of all this massive rights to U.S. uranium to Uranium One, which is now owned by Russia's state-owned energy company, engineered by Frank Justra, tracing back to his relationship with Bill Clinton, flying Bill Clinton around in his private airplane.
Well, I mean, it never ceases to amaze. I know there's some information. It came out in 2012 in regards to Hillary Clinton's top State Department aide. She was the Chief of Staff, Cheryl Mills. And when she was working with under the State Department, she also did some work for the foundation and came up with a person, Rajiv Fernando. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, again, this is another one of these major scams. Citizens United has released some emails, and basically this guy Fernando, who was really a stockbroker. I mean, he really had nothing in terms of any government experience. He was Rajiv Fernando. Well, he was a major contributor to the Clinton Foundation, gave between $1 and $5 million. The Clinton Foundation, he ends up being appointed on this sensitive government intelligence advisory board when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. And he gets networked into these emails that Cheryl Mills, as Chief of Staff for Secretary of State Clinton, was sending around on arms control issues that he was emailed in on. And so you've got the Clinton group, Cheryl Mills at State, when she's talking about arms control issues, emails in this Clinton group, which evidently includes this guy Fernando as part of the Clinton group, who's also on the Sensitive Intelligence Board on arms control. And when you try to get through why was Fernando on the International Security Advisory Board with all these other weapons experts, experienced group of experts, basically you don't have any answer as to why he was doing it, except that, as a stockbroker, he was benefiting from the information he was getting as part of this group. This was a top secret group that was getting sensitive information from the State Department on arms control, but was yet being linked back into a Clinton Foundation group by Cheryl Mills emails that were notifying Clinton Foundation executives, including ultimately this guy Fernando, of what was going on within the State Department on the arms control panel, of which now Fernando was a member. And, these are the kinds of obvious conflicts of interest where the Clintons seem to think that they could use the fact that Hillary was Secretary of State to benefit people who contributed to the foundation and position them ways in which they had influence within the State Department, but yet had ties back into the Clinton Foundation where they could benefit in business terms from the activities that were going on with the Clinton Foundation and with the State Department on these arms controls issues. And there's no reason that the Clinton Foundation group should ever have been networked into State Department emails on State Department business, nor is there any reason why this guy Fernando, as a stockbroker, should ever have been appointed to the Special Arms Committee within the State Department, except that he was a big top-dollar Clinton Foundation donor. That's his only qualification.
Yeah, and the fact that he traveled to Africa with Bill Clinton, it seemed like they were pretty chummy as well. I mean, all these people are so interconnected. And even when Cheryl Mills, flew to New York in 2012 and traveled there, she was working for the State Department and went there to find somebody to run the Clinton Foundation, supposedly. And people, started making a big deal of that, saying, why are you doing Clinton Foundation business when you're working with the State Department? And it came out, oh, well, I did this for free. I'm just working for a charity, and I did this for free. And I'm thinking, yeah, who paid for your trip there? Who paid for your time there? And if there was any way to search that out in the IRS filings that are so convoluted and confused, you'd be able to see that obviously she had to have been paid for her time and everything else in going there. And
and also the records begin to indicate that there are pay arrangements, that both Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills were tied into both Clinton Foundation and Teneo and receiving compensation from them while they were also at the State Department. And,
so amazing.
Hillary, I point out in Partners of Crime that before Hillary got the job as Secretary of State, there was this large process going on where she had to agree in a memorandum of understanding that she was, Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, was not going to be involved in Clinton Foundation business, and that there was going to be no acceptance of the Clinton Foundation for foreign deposits, foreign contributions to the Clinton Foundation, because that might open up the opportunity for influencing the Secretary of State. And this was negotiated. Cheryl Mills was involved in negotiating this memorandum of understanding. It was reviewed by Congress and was put into place before President-elect Obama named Hillary Clinton as his choice for Secretary of State. And the testimony that involved the Senate Foreign Relations Committee questioning Hillary, Senator Richard Lugar, who was at that time the Republican senator ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, grilled Hillary, and she agreed that she would have a line of separation between State Department and Clinton Foundation activity. But that was almost immediately ignored. I mean, the memorandum of understanding was not as good as the paper it was written on.
Yeah, and I'm sure she would have that same separation if she, God forbid, were elected president as well. I mean, that this would just, if she's elected president, the Clinton Foundation is going to just, if you think they're making money now, I mean, how much money are they going to make if she becomes president?
Right. Well, I mean, Bill Clinton got $48 million in speaking fees while Hillary was Secretary of State. Okay, and so this is again, these speaking fees, when you look at who they're coming from, are coming from major Wall Street groups, they're coming from foreign interests, they're coming all over the place, and they're not being submitted to the State Department for review prior to Bill Clinton accepting the speaking engagements. These are the Clinton Foundation had ties extensively with foreign entities that had interest in Secretary of Clinton's decisions within the State Department, and were paying money to the Clinton Foundation and or were clients at Teneo at the same time. And then I point out in the book that, the Clintons reorganized this Clinton Health Access Initiative in 2009 to try to make it a separate corporation, breaking it out from the Clinton Foundation because Kai was receiving money from UnitAid through the World Health Organization to fight AIDS in Africa. Well, when they reorganized it, the balance sheet shows that they essentially stole $17 million out of Kai that went disappearing between the audited balance sheet for old Kai at the end of December 31st, 2010, and the opening new balance for the new Kai at the start of the year, January 1, 2010. So the money just went, gone. The money was missing. And this kind of a reorganization, reshuffling of money, and money disappearing in the Clinton Foundation is unfortunately not all that unusual when you take a look at the Clinton Foundation financials.
Well, all I know is it really pays to be an honorary chancellor, because when it came out that Clinton was paid, Bill Clinton was paid more than $1 million in 2015 by Laureate Education, and it says they're a global operator of for-profit colleges, and that was on the Hillary Clinton tax returns and Bill Clinton tax returns. And it said that the total compensation from Laureate was supposedly $17.5 million for his 5-year role as an honorary chancellor. And he advised the company on educational matters and traveling to campuses across the world to speak to young people. And it said that this Laureate International Universities, the company's international arm for which Clinton worked, that was Bill Clinton, donated between $1 to $5 million to the Clinton Foundation.
Crazy. That Laureate, I pointed that out and made a point of that in the Partners in Crime because also, they attacked, the Clintons attacked Donald Trump on his Trump University, which pales and is small, tiny in comparison with this Laureate University. And the Laureate University, which is, billed as one of the world's largest for-profit universities, 800,000 students, revenues of $4 billion, operating all over the world. In 2000, it hired Bill Clinton in 2004 as its honorary chairman, paid him some $17.5 million to do so. And the Laureate Education has a history of defrauding students around the world. It's probably especially egregious on its graduate level, where students are never allowed to finish their graduate dissertations and are constantly paying money, some of them as much as $250,000 to receive a degree that they never get. And the university has a horrible history of defrauding students, getting them into courses that don't end up benefiting them. These are kids or adults who basically dropped out of school at one point or other and want to complete their education online or through a profit university that just has focused classes on their areas of interest. But it's a scam, and the Clinton Foundation, Bill Clinton is the chairman of it, and I think the record is very clear that the founders of this organization have just basically, again, bilked it of money, taken out money, left and right, with the students not getting the education they were promised worldwide.
Now, has Hillary's daughter, Chelsea, has she become just like Hillary in the way she handles the job she's been given by Hillary?
Well, I write extensively about Chelsea, and it looks like Chelsea is following right into the parents' footsteps because Chelsea, first of all, comes out of school and she ends up with this massive job, McKinsey Corporation, paying her something like $600,000 or $800,000 and she's never available to anybody. She's acting like she's the princess, and who knows what she's doing for this massive amount of money when she's really just fresh out of college, except for her name, which obviously justifies the payment in terms of those who want to gain influence with the Clinton family. And then you get into the point where she comes in and tries, before Hillary Clinton's 2016 election, Chelsea steps in and she's going to try to clean up the Hillary Foundation and, the Clinton Foundation. And she brings in this guy, Eric Braverman, 38 years old, again from McKinsey. He's helped the Clintons with philanthropic projects in Haiti, which I also say are a scam. And Bruce Lindsay, the longtime attorney with the Clintons, resigns as the CEO of the Clinton Foundation, but continues to serve as the chairman of the foundation's board of directors. And Braverman comes in and he tries to clean things up. He shifts around the board of directors. He tries to find new people to come into the organization to do a legitimate job. And by the way, Chelsea also went after Doug Band to get ties with Bill Clinton cut. In the end, Braverman, as I mentioned earlier, resigns rather than sign fraudulent financial reports, and Teneo redefines the relationship with Bill Clinton so they continue to pay him. So Chelsea has achieved really nothing in cleaning the foundation up, except she's now put her name on it, and she's had more of an executive position within it, and I think ultimately just bought into the fraud.
Wow.
They finally got, after Braverman left, the Clinton Foundation in 2015 brought in to replace Braverman Donna Shalala, who served as Secretary of Health and Human Services under Bill Clinton when he was in the White House, and is a close friend of Hillary. And what this did was shift the power again in the Clinton Foundation over to more Hillary, overseeing the activities of Chelsea, who's now departing McKinsey friend Braverman skipped rather than participate in the fraud. This is a time when the Washington Post reported even that more than a third of the foundation's largest donors were based outside the United States. This is a clear violation of the Memorandum of Understanding, and the foundation accepted millions of dollars from 7 foreign governments while Hillary was Secretary of State. And these are the kinds of things that, basically Shalala was hired to kind of keep the lid on everything, not permit any of these financial scandals and transactions to surface in the public to embarrass Hillary in her presidential campaign. But yet they're fully documented, and they're documented in the mainstream media press when they happened.
Wow. Well, I wanted to ask you too, over the last, couple of months, there have been about 4 people who have either committed suicide, died unexpectedly, and somehow connected to the DNC, and maybe connected in some way, to the Clintons. I mean, any knowledge of whether these people may have had any dealings with the Clinton Foundation or any connections at all?
Well, again, all this is this is in the realm the mainstream media likes to call conspiracy theory, and it's very tough to prove any of these things. The list of Clinton suspicious deaths is pretty long.
Yeah.
And, it does raise questions of whether people were, inappropriately or inconveniently going to expose truth about the Clintons were done away with. I don't think that's the issue in which we're going to get the Clintons. I think we're going to get the Clintons on, as I said earlier, comparing the information I've got in Partners in Crime with the way the financial statements were done, which I show you how to do in the book, and the glaring errors and omissions, this incomplete mess of financial statements audited by auditors who should be held accountable, for an accounting scam that I think is as big or bigger than Enron. These are the kinds of things that are going to ultimately, if they're pursued and understood by the public, I like to say, Al Capone did not go to jail on racketeering. He went to jail on tax fraud, not paying his income tax. And the Clintons, I think, will not be able to explain the fraudulent financial statements and the fraudulent regulatory statements, and any one state attorney general deciding to do a criminal investigation of the Clinton Foundation can close it down internationally until that investigation is completed. And any one person in a state who's contributed $1 to the Clinton Foundation can demand a criminal investigation of the state attorney general. And I've written my book. It ends up with a list, Partners in Crime, ends up with a list of the state attorneys general and how you can contact them and how you can begin initiating a criminal investigation of the Clinton Foundation.
How badly does she need to win the election in order to help herself out of anything that she may have gotten involved in that's questionable or otherwise with the Clinton Foundation? Well,
if Hillary wins the election, the Clinton Foundation scam will just be taken to a new level. I mean, now Bill Clinton's going to get incredible, $1 million will be nothing for his speaker fees because his wife is president. And the Clinton Foundation will continue the sell favors, but now they can sell favors that the White House can put into place. And the whole scam, a scam artist's dream is to control an office that you can sell privileges out of, using the government office as a means to collect fees you pocket. It's a traditional scam.
Now, looking at Hillary's help, is anything going to play into that with her in the sympathy or anything else, do you think, with looking at the Clinton Foundation and the dealings?
Well, the Clintons, of course, will use anything they can for sympathy and to try to divert attention from the crimes, I think, that have been committed in the Clinton Foundation. But the risk Hillary's got is that more incidents of her coughing or of her apparent memory lapses or mental incapacity or another instance of tripping, fainting, falling, concussions. Any of these happening at an inopportune time could be fatal to the campaign.
Right.
So these are the kinds of things that, are basically detrimental ultimately and a threat out there, an outlying threat to the Clintons. If Hillary is, and I've written extensively in WND, I think Hillary is taking medications that, for both blood clot thinning and also for various thyroid issues that she's got, that are medications that are dangerous to combine and have potential side effects. And it appears that when she fell and had a concussion, that took 6 or 7 months to recover from. Well, that has potential, early dementia or mental impairment consequences that need to be again seriously looked at. And I think if we continue along through the next 2 months of the campaign, when Hillary's going to be under significant stress physically, that the potential exists and continues to exist that she'll have another episode that will be hard or if not impossible to cover up, because it'll occur publicly and everybody will see it. It just takes one instance of somebody, being able not to remember something or obviously suffering a memory lapse on television in front of the nation that's going to dramatically impact the ability of that person to be elected.
Yeah, I was watching a video on YouTube of her at, I forget where she was at. It was one of her campaign speeches. And she literally, when the crowd started clapping and getting really loud, she was talking, everything seemed to be going well. And then when the crowd started getting really loud and cheering, it's like she totally became disoriented. You could see it in her face, and I'm sure you can find that on YouTube. And she didn't know where she was and what she was talking. And it was just like she was gone for a second or two and then came back and regained her composure. But to me, it was really obvious. I mean, I've seen the other ones where she's shaking her head, and I don't agree, but I'm not her doctor. I don't agree those were seizures, and I know everybody was saying those are seizures and all that. But I mean, in this one that I saw, it was very clear that she was disoriented.
Well, I think those are going to continue to occur. And just take one of those. I think one of those could be potentially crippling to her presidential chances. Because it's just going to take one slipping away from, falling, one instance of tripping, one instance of not being able to remember what she's talking about. These are the kinds of things that could be very detrimental to the campaign, and it could happen any day, any time.
Yeah, and we know that she had this in 2012, and we should be looking at medical records and saying, let's disclose those pertinent ones to the public, because if you have a president, you want that president to be well. I mean, when George Bush that one time fainted or whatever in his office, we knew about what the reasons were for his fainting. I think he got, was choking on something he was eating or whatever it was. I can't even remember now. But the public was told about that and how was he okay? Is he ready to continue his duties, whatever. And I know he was president, but when somebody's going into office, you want to know that they're prepared and can physically handle the position, and we're not doing that at all.
And it's going to come back, I think, to ultimately happen. It hurt Hillary, because I can't imagine the next 2 months going without another instance of slipping, falling, forgetting, having a mental lapse that isn't recorded and seen by the nation. And these are going to mount up. I don't see Hillary. She does not look to me to be able to go up and down stairs, to move around on the podium, to, handle noise or handle any kind of a upset, like a protest. Something will happen where her physical condition, I think, is going to be brought into serious question, and it's going to be required that she release her whole medical record, which I'm confident is going to be very detrimental.
Yeah, I don't see how it couldn't be at this point. There's just, like you said, there's too much evidence already, and then there's going to be even more. So, our time has just flown by, as it usually does when we're into something that is just a lot of information and great information that we, the American public, need to know. So Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you so much for being here. Your book is Partners in Crime, The Clinton Scheme to Monetize the White House for Personal Profit. Where can we find your book?
Well, Partners in Crime is published by WND, and it's Jerome Corsi, Corsi. I'm a senior staff reporter. It's also available on all the websites, Amazon.com, copies of the WND Superstore, BarnesandNoble.com, and it'll be available in the bookstores as well.
And you're continuing to write articles for them, so I'm sure that we'll see articles on this subject and other subjects as well at WND.com?
That's correct. On a continuing basis, I'll be writing about this on WND.com.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again for coming on, and keep writing. We need your books.
Thanks. My great pleasure to be back with you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. So there you have it. It was an excellent book. I mean, there's so much information, again, that we don't have time to get to every single thing. You really should get that book. I mean, it truly lays things out. He doesn't mince words. He tells you a lot more people that are involved in what he's calling this, the Clinton scheme to profit from what they're doing. More information needs to come out. We need to have the public know all of this information, because this is detrimental to our country. And I know people think, people listen and they don't really hear, but we've got to keep going. Get the information out, get the book, pass it around to people, tell them about it. Thank you so much for being here today. Really so excited that you could join us. We're going to have another great guest next week. Please share the show. Until then, take care of yourself. God bless you. We'll see you again next week. Hi, I'm Susan Knowles. Do you often feel that our world is upside down, where fiction has become fact and America seems to be unrecognizable? Then you'll want to read my fiction, Freedom's Fight, A Call to Remember. Go on a journey with Bethany, who longs for the country she once knew.
before the regime took over and changed it beyond recognition. Go with her on her quest to return America to its rightful place. Order Freedom's Fight: A Call to Remember at Amazon.com today.